وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُّدَّكِرٍ.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the new video tutorial of Madin Arabic Book 1. This is going to be part 3 of lesson 8. Today we'll take a closer look at the Arabic verbs in the past tense and learn about their conjugation with respect to different persons to indicate who's doing the action. The reason why we are learning the verbs now is because over the next few lessons of Madin Arabic Book 1, Dr. Abdul Rahim gradually starts introducing different conjugated forms of the verbs in the past tense. And I think it's a good idea for us to see the entire table a bit ahead of time, so we can spend some time getting better familiarized with verb conjugations before we get introduced to them one by one. Once we see the entire conjugation table and memorize them if we can, inshallah, we will be in a much better position to pick them up quickly when we begin learning the conjugated forms individually later on. Okay, let's start. The past tense verb in Arabic is called al-fi'lul madi. Al-fi'lul madi. Al-fi'l means the verb. Al-madi means the past. So al-fi'lul madi is the past tense verb. The base form of the majority verbs in the past tense are composed of 3 consonant letters, also known as root letters. For example, the verb fa'ala, which means he did. In fa'ala, the first root letter is fa, and the second one is ayn, and the third letter is lam. We will see a lot of verbs in the past tense taking such a pattern as fa'ala. This verb, fa'ala, he did, is currently sitting in its base form, or stripped down form. As we can tell from the translation, this base form of the verbs in Arabic refers to third person singular masculine huwa. During conjugation, this base form gets altered by addition of suffix at the end to indicate who is doing the action. Let's now see how exactly it gets altered or conjugated. We will make use of the domirs that we learned before to help us out with the conjugation. Huwa, huma, hum. Hiya, huma, hunna. Anta, antuma, antum. Anti, antuma, antunna. Ana, nahnu. If you need a quick refresher on these domirs, I suggest you to revisit the video for Book 1, Lesson 4 and Part 3. We will start with the third person mudhakkar or masculine forms. So for huwa, as we said, the verb is in its base or simplest form, fa'ala. In other words, fa'ala means he did. We do not have to say huwa fa'ala. The verb fa'ala already refers to huwa. We are using dhamir here just to show which person this verb is referring to. For huma, they two for mudhakkar, we use fa'ala. You see what is changing here? We added alif at the end. Fa'ala means they too did. Again, we do not have to say huma fa'ala. The verb fa'ala by itself conveys the meaning of they too did. For whom or they for 3 or more in mudhakkar gender, the form is fa'alu. We are adding waw and alif at the end. And the last vowel of the base form changed from fatha to dhamma. Even though alif is added in writing, we actually do not pronounce it. So we say fa'alu. Fa'alu means they did for the mudhakkar doer or mudhakkar fa'il. Let's move on to the third person feminine forms now. For hiya, the verb is fa'alat. So we are adding ta with sukun at the end. Fa'alat means she did. For huma, the verb is fa'alata. We are adding letters ta and alif to the end. Fa'alata means they too did for mu'annath gender. For hunna, mu'annath they, the verb is fa'alna. The suffix added is noon with fatha. Also from fa'alna onward, all the remaining conjugated forms get sukun on top of the lam or last letter of the base form, as we will see shortly. Fa'alna means they did for feminine. These were the conjugations for the third person, which are fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alu. Fa'alat, fa'alata, fa'alna. Now let's see the conjugations of this verb for the second person. We will start with mudhakkar forms. For anta, you, it will be fa'alta, you did. So the last vowel of the base form changes to sukun and ta is added. For أنتما, it is فعلتما. You two did. Besides the sukun, the suffix tuma is added. For أنتم, you all, for 3 or more, the verb is فعلتم. So again, lam gets sukun and tum is added. So فعلتم means you all did for مذكر فاعل. As far as the mu'annath forms of the second person, for anti, you, it will be فعلتي. The suffix of this form is ti, as in فعلتي, you did. The form for أنتما, mu'annath you two, is same as the مذكر أنتما, which is فعلتما, you two did. For أنتن, you all, it is فعلتن. So tunna is added and lam gets sukun. فعلتن means you did for mu'annath plural of 3 or more. If you notice, the suffixes for the second person are the same as the ending of the damir. For example, for anta, it is فعلت. For أنتم, it is فعلتم. For أنتِ, it is فعلتِ. For أنتما, فعلتما. And for أنتن, the verb is فعلتن. So if you already know the damirs, it will be much easier for us to memorize the verb conjugations for the second person. For the first person, we only have 2 forms. For أنا, it is فعلت, with the suffix tu added. And for نحن, it is فعلنا, noon with alif added. So altogether we have فعل, فعلا, فعلوا, فعلت, فعلتا, فعلنا, فعلت, فعلتما, فعلتم, فعلتِ, فعلتما, فعلتن, فعلت, فعلنا. It may be easier to memorize these conjugation patterns if we split them into groups of 3 except the last one, which will have the last 2 forms. So again, فعل, فعلا, فعلوا, فعلت, فعلتا, فعلنا, فعلت, فعلتما, فعلتم, فعلتِ, فعلتما, فعلتن, فعلت, فعلنا. Notice for hunna, the fi'al is فعلنا, and for نحن, it is فعلنا. The only difference between the two is that the form for نحن gets extra alif. Therefore, we prolong the a sound a bit and say فعلنا for نحن. Versus for hunna, it is فعلنا with short a ending. So there's a small difference between the two that we might want to take note of. If we can memorize these patterns of conjugation for a single verb, inshallah, it will be very easy to apply it to many other verbs in the past tense. For example, let's take ذهب. He went. For هو, it is ذهب, as in فعل. For هما, it is ذهبا, as in فعلا. You see the pattern or the suffix is the same. ذهبا means they too went for مذكر. For whom, it is ذهبوا, as in فعلوا. ذهبوا means they all went for مذكر. For هي, it is ذهبت, as in فعلت. ذهبت means she went. For مؤنث هما, it is ذهبتا, as in فعلتا. They too went for مؤنث. For هن, it is ذهبنا, as in فعلنا. ذهبنا is they all went for مؤنث gender. For أنت, what do you think it will be? It should take the pattern of فعلت. So ذهب will become ذهبت. You went for مذكر فاعل or doer. For أنتما, we had فعلتما. So it should be ذهبتما. You two went. For أنتم, the pattern was فعلتم. For ذهب, it should be ذهبتم. You all went for مذكر. For أنت, it is ذهبتِ, as in فعلتِ. ذهبتِ is you went for مؤنث doer or فاعل. For أنتما, it is ذهبتما. You two went. For أنتن, it is ذهبتن. You all went for مؤنث. For أنا, I went, it is ذهبت, as in فعلت. For نحن, it is ذهبنا. We went. ذهبنا, as in فعلنا. So together for ذهب, we have ذهب, ذهبا, ذهبوا, ذهبت, ذهبتا, ذهبنا. ذهبت, ذهبتما, ذهبتم. ذهبتِ, ذهبتما, ذهبتن. ذهبت ذهبنا. Again, ذهب ذهبا ذهبوا. ذهبت ذهبتا ذهبنا. ذهبت ذهبتما ذهبتم. ذهبت ذهبتما ذهبتن. ذهبت ذهبنا. We need to keep repeating these conjugations a few times until we get used to it. While at it, let's see the conjugations of two more verbs. خرج, which as we learned before means he came out. We can conjugate it as خرج خرجا خرجوا. خرجت خرجتا خرجنا. خرجت خرجتما خرجتم. خرجت خرجتما خرجتن. خرجت خرجنا. Again, خرج خرجا خرجوا. خرجت خرجتا خرجنا. خرجت خرجتما خرجتم. خرجت خرجتما خرجتن. خرجت خرجنا. Again, keep in mind the subtle difference between the forms for نحن and هن. For نحن, it is خرجنا, and for هن, it is خرجنا. No elongation of the last فتحة. And one more verb before we finish. جلس, which means he sat. This is a new verb that we will come across in the remaining exercises of the lesson 8. So for هو, it is جلس, he sat. From here, we can apply the same pattern of conjugations. جلس جلسا جلسوا. جلست جلستا جلسنا. جلست جلستما جلستم. جلست جلستما جلستن. جلست جلسنا. We repeat again. جلس جلسا جلسوا. جلست جلستا جلسنا. جلست جلستما جلستم. جلست جلستما جلستن. جلست جلسنا. Now I suggest you to pick one of these verbs and take your time and try to memorize the conjugation patterns for it. Then try to apply the same pattern to the rest of the 3 verbs we learned. Also try to connect them to the domeirs that the conjugated forms refer to. For example, we know that the verbs جلس جلسا جلسوا refer to هو هما هم respectively. جلست جلستا جلسنا refer to هي هما هن. جلست جلستما جلستم refer to أنت أنتما أنتم. جلست جلستما جلستن refer to أنت أنتما أنتن. جلست جلسنا are for أنا ونحن. In the next video, we will practice the conjugations we learned here inshallah. But please do not rush to the next video without learning these patterns by heart first. I hope to see you in the next video soon. Assalamu alaikum.